Hey friends, remember when I promised you in the beginning of this YouTube channel that I will always show you the good, the bad and the ugly? Today we'll talk a lot about the ugly because I want to show you the 3 things which failed in my vegetable department and the 3 things which failed in my flower department. So I'll walk you through those ones, why I think they failed. For some it was definitely me, for other ones it was nature, which you can't control, right? I will walk you through those things and just show you that not everything is beautiful and gorgeous and made up here. It's really real life garden with things that go well and other things we'll learn and move on for next season. So fail number 1, clearly one which is to be banged in my corner, was I not completely, but I neglected staking opportunities in a big portion of my garden, which was basically this first flower L over here. I have some excuses to be made because it wasn't so easy to stake, because I had some transition between like spring flowers and some summer flowers, which made it a little bit harder, a little bit more complicated to find a good moment to stake or to provide some horizontal netting. But to be honest, it was in the end just me not having time and prioritizing other things like staking and providing the supports for the dahlias. When I didn't have much time, I prioritized my dahlia strip over there. But it is what it is, right? So I'm not growing cut flowers for to make money off. I don't sell them. I don't do anything with it. So it was purely for my garden. Yes, it hurt me to see some of my Lisianthus fade away and being like mowed down. But in the end, again, like you got to have priorities if you just have very, very little time. And that was one thing which in the end I was a little bit sad. I'm not sure if I will have next year this spring to summer cut over, because it was a lot of work and a lot of difficult timing, where I'm not sure if I will have that next year in spring with my current travel schedule. If that goes into next spring as well, that will be something tough for me to do. So I'm basically reviewing what are my priorities for next season already in my head, and just pondering, would it be worth it to go and plant the anemones and plant the ranunculus again, which weren't so great successful. So might just keep it simple, put some cover crops on it and just plant it all out in the summer when we get there. But staking was definitely, I would argue, one of my biggest fails in the flower department here for this season. So fail number 1 on the veggie department side. This is actually a corner which you don't see so often because there wasn't much to show you through the season. Those were supposed to be pole beans, pole dry beans. I always love to separate like the dry beans from the like normal green bean, pole bean, to just be sure which ones are which, right? So those were meant to be outside, but you can see here, nothing ever grew up the trellis. In the previous years, I always had them go up the bamboo trellis and then usually spread around on the deck, railing nicely through the summer. I think they got eaten by snails and bunnies early in the season. I think the tendrils or so were eaten off, so it had never the motivation to grow up. I did get some beans of it, and it's actually carrying now a nice amount of beans. So I hope they still have enough time to dry. I'm not sure about that. Those ones I harvested already off. They are obviously done, but that was definitely one of the fails. I think I might try next year, just because I've never tried it. And yes, every once in a while I do give into garden craze, but I might try to grow a loofah up here or two to just see how that goes, or a loofah and a cucumber melon or so, just for fun and shenanigans, to see what it is, to give the soil also something else and just beans to grow in. So yep, that was definitely fail number 1 in the veggie department. Number 2 of the fail in the flower department is I really was poorly deadheading stuff this season. The Army is a great example, where we actually film a seed saving video probably in the next few days, because with the missing deadheading I produced a lot of seeds here, which I certainly don't want to have all in the landscape, so we'll save some for my annual seed share, which I'll probably have in the fall again. But yeah, I think I could have gotten a lot more bloom from this plant if I would have cut it a little bit more. Same for a few other varieties I have, like the zinnias weren't very well dead-headed either. Just things I'm usually more up to date when I have time, but again, priorities, right? So for fail number 2, we are here again on the ground level to look at my ground cherries, which actually grew very prolific. As you can tell here, I have one here and one on the other side. For some reason, I thought that if I plant them in the slightly taller beds, they will be a little bit further removed from the ground, but as you can tell here, they are not. They are laying on, which makes the picking the ground cherries more difficult. I got to think of a better way to grow them next year. I'm not exactly sure if a cage or something else would work because they have this particular growth habit, but if you have any idea or have experienced a better way to grow the grown cherries and really have them rather grow up than lean over and down, please let me know in the comments. I'm really looking for good suggestions here. Yeah, that was definitely fail number 2. We still harvested a lot and I'm still digging around here, and they're still packed. So we'll make some jam and maybe some pie with it. But yeah, definitely and forever grow with me, even though they are so invasive almost. You wouldn't believe where I picked all ground cherry seedlings off this year. It's wild, but still love them, and they are prolific over here. All right, that was number 2. And then fail number 3, which I have clearly a strong learning curve still, is succession planting. So this whole bed was just one big fat experiment for me this year with like turning it over from spring crops to summer crops, which worked partially because of the zinnias, except for my missing staking there, but that worked fine. But I had some other things which just popped up where I wasn't strong enough to pull them out and just let them be, which was probably problem number 1 for me, not being able to stake them properly with the horizontal netting, because I let those ones grow taller and then I was too lazy or to wrangle those plants into that netting. So that was probably part of the issue, but really like having a good flip over from spring to summer, which needs timing, and then the weather plays in so much in this timing as well. It was a lot of work, a lot of anxiety in that cut over time. Are the seedlings going to be fine if I let them wait a little longer? I had a lot of back and forth with the covers, which I'm honestly not sure if I have any energy to do that next spring, so we'll see about that. But yeah, so for me, that was not very successful experiment, although I learned a lot, right? So with any of those fails, I think I learned plenty, and that is always what brings me joy still in gardening, like besides all the anxiety and the issues along the way. But that was really something what, yeah, I'm not sure if I get myself into that next year, knowing that I will be probably away a good portion of the time as well. So you gotta hedge your bets with the life that surrounds you well to have a successful garden. So that will be a point of consideration for me. This is also why I have here a few spots which are still kind of empty-ish, or where a few successions just came in late, or the bunnies played in that game with it. So yeah, I might take it all down and provide a cover crop section here to just replenish the soil a little bit after experimenting so much. But yeah, in the end, we will see. So, and while we're at this bed, I think this year I also have been guilty of overcrowding at least my tomato bed pretty much. I had this kind of setting last year, except for the ground cherries and the basil, and I had 2 different varieties, like a very, very prolific ground cherry on both corners, and then basil, which turned into bushes, which was great because I definitely made my pesto dreams come true this year. But with those massive basil bushes, which I really didn't have the heart to cut out to give everything else a little bit more space, everything else suffered a little bit more by, I think, fighting for the resources, but also not enough airflow. So you can see my tomatoes are poorly diseased at this point, although I would argue the amounts of rain we had played a big role in this as well. But typically I'm also more on top with the pruning of the tomatoes and everything, so that would have prevented that disease spread to a good portion. But again, time was of the essence this year and it didn't make the cut. So next year I'll definitely pull a few plants out of this setup to just give everything a little bit more space. Maybe just one ground cherry, not two. And yeah, just a few adjustments. And again, it's live and learn, right? So that is the big thing with gardening. Not one year is like the other. Mother Nature plays the biggest role in it, but then of course you want to try out new things and want to test a few things, and some things work and others don't. So that is honestly one of the joys of gardening for me, to see just how it works out what I plan. So it's really a great teacher for you, and yeah, I love it. But that was definitely probably too much in this bed, and we'll learn from it from next year. Oh, look, so cute in the garden, huh, Maggie? Here, wagging your tail, not moving. I know it's so nice and cool again. So I hope this was an interesting video for you. It wasn't the most prettiest one, I admit, but I think it's important to also show this side of gardening, that not everything is going well at all times, and everyone has their challenges, no matter where you grow, in which zone, in which climate, in which region, right? It all comes with its own challenges, and that is one of the fun things with gardening. It's always different depending on where you are and what you do. But here in my zone 6 in Edinburgh, I think I've mastered a good amount of challenges this year. So for those few fails, I can live with it. And those were mostly calculated fails with the staking and stuff. It's all right. Some seasons you gotta just go and fly with what life throws at you. But overall, I'm very happy how the garden turned out, and we'll do proper garden review once the garden is done. But as long as we have everything here, we'll enjoy it and really make the best out of it. So yeah, I hope this was interesting to you. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I'm always happy to answer those. And yeah, I would love if you can like this video. That helps the algorithm to bubble me a little bit more up. And otherwise, subscribe and watch another video. Thank you.